Greetings everyone and welcome into the PECB webinar. My name is Gzim Zaneli and I am the account manager for security portfolio at PECB. Today I will be as an organizer for this webinar and I hope we will have a very interactive webinar with all the questions and your comments. Just for your information, I assume you all know that PECB organizes a daily webinar in our 5 portfolios, and every week we organize a webinar on a security portfolio covering different topics and areas. In this 30-minute webinar, we will hear about the topic ISO IEC 27001 as a starting point for GRC. This webinar will be presented by PECB trainer, Mr. Jorge Lozano, who is a senior manager at the Cybersecurity Privacy practice of PwC Mexico. He has over 17 years of experience in information security and holds the CISSP, CISM, CEH, and ISO 27001 lead implementer certification. We hope this webinar will help you understand the importance and the relation of ISO 27001 to GRC. And if you have any question, you can write them in at any time in question box in right-hand control panel, or you can use the option to raise your hand and we will answer to all of them accordingly. Please, Jorge, you may continue.
Okay, thank you, Gzim. Thank you everyone to join us in this webinar. I would like to just begin with the presentation, and the things that we are covering today is basically answer the question, what is GRC, just to have in mind the implications of the GRC. Then we're going to review the structure of the ISO 27001, how is the different areas, the different topics that the ISO 27001 covers. And finally, we're going to see how the ISO 27001 can be used to implement or begin the implementation of a GRC. So, what is GRC? GRC stands for Governance, Risk Management, and Compliance. So these 3 elements are considered the enablers for an organization to assure it meets its objectives. So governance stands for the overall management approach employed by senior executives to direct and control the whole organization. So at this stage is where we, as senior executives, define the objectives that we want to achieve and meet the goals that we establish for our organization. Then risk management. So we were talking, and we say that the mechanisms are the mechanisms to effectively and cost efficiently give treatment to risk that can hinder an organization's operations or ability to remain competitive in its market. The main goal of risk management is actually have a clear idea through established process in order to identify what are the weak spots, what are the opportunities that we can also use in order to manage our operation and achieve our goals. And finally, compliance, well, stands for all the processes that we are going to use in order to achieve the conformance with all the stated requirements that our organization needs. So, generally speaking, GRC, what are their goals? What are the goals that we want to achieve? So, first, we want to understand and prioritize all the expectations from our stakeholders. Stakeholders are everyone inside the organization and even outside our organization that are interested in the success of reaching the objectives of the organization. Then we want to set business objectives that are congruent with values and risks. We want that to align and adjust our objectives, knowing what are the risks, what are the challenges that organization is facing in the general environment that we are where we are working and where we are participating as our organization. Then achieve objectives while optimizing risk profile and protecting value. All our objectives, we want to meet them by optimizing the risks that we are facing. So if we are facing risks that are maybe too high or that the organizations are not willing to accept, then we have to adjust the objectives. So we have to take all the different actions in order to balance that level of acceptance of the risk and meet the goals, the objectives that we are looking for. Then, of course, we want to operate within legal, contractual, internal, social, and ethical boundaries. Everything that is established, and especially if we have documented all those requirements that we have to meet, then we have to take care that we are meeting them, and that this or that any deviation from those boundaries are not going to create or generate a problem for our organization. Then provide relevant, reliable, and timely information to appropriate stakeholders. So we want to present evidence to anyone that is interested in our organization that we are actually managing to meet our goals. And in order to meet, to achieve this objective, we also want to have a way to measure how we are doing, how well we are achieving and meeting our goals. So, the structure of ISO 27001. What are the goals? ISO 27001 provides, and I'm quoting the standard, provides the requirements to establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve an information security management system. So basically what we are dealing here is the practice and the several practices that we are going to use and implement in order to protect the information, the relevant information of our organization. The ISMS preserves the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information by applying a risk management process and gives confidence to interested parties that risks are adequately managed. So here what the standard is establishing and defining, we're going to use the well-documented and very well-established process for risk management. And it's everything oriented to be compliant with the requirements and the interests of our parties, being internal or external parties. It is important that the ISMS is part of and integrated with the organization's processes and overall management structure. So what we want to achieve here is that the ISO 27001, the IS and the ISMS meets and is aligned with all the structures and all the objectives that the organization has. Right here in this image, in this diagram, we can see the different sections of the standard. So you can see here how we are covering the context of the organization, establishing leadership, planning, support, operation, performance, evaluation, improvement, and finally the Annex A, where all the controls, the information security controls, are defined. But going beyond that, those list of controls, we are establishing, and the ISO standard is helping us to really create and establish a way to manage our information security. So you remember the different goals that we were discussing about GRC. Well, right here you can see how each one of them is or can be obtained and reached through the different clauses of the ISO standard. So, for example, in order to achieve the goal of understanding and prioritizing the expectation of stakeholders, the clause 4.2 of the standards is actually asking us to understand the needs and expectations of interested parties. So we have to determine what are the interested parties that are relevant to the information security management systems and the requirements of these interested parties. In order to achieve the goal of setting business objectives that are congruent with values and risks, well, clause 6.1.1 states that we have to plan, or when planning for the information security management system, the organization shall consider the issues referring in the clause 4.1, understanding the organization context, and also understanding the needs and expectations of those interested parties. So we, in this way, we can determine the risks and opportunities that need to be addressed. Then, in order to achieve objectives while optimizing risk profile and protecting value, the clause 8.1 is going to is asking us to plan, implement, and control the processes needed to meet information security requirements and to implement the actions that are determined by actions to address risks and opportunities. And the organization shall also implement plans to achieve information security objectives determined by information security objectives and planning in order to achieve them. So what we want here, what the standard is asking us to do, is actually achieve and orient our objectives based on the managed risk process. Then, in order to achieve the goal of operating within legal, contractual, internal, social, and ethical boundaries, clause 4.2 is asking us to determine the requirements of the interested parties, taking into account all the legal and regulatory requirements and contractual obligations. And also, we have specific control in the Annex A that is oriented to be compliant with legal and contractual requirements. In order to provide relevant, reliable, and timely information to appropriate stakeholders, we have clause 9.3 that is the management review. In this way, there a well-established documented process for management reviews. So in these reviews, we also be considering the feedback from interested parties. And the organization shall retain documented information as evidence of these results. So in this way, we have a very well-defined and we have the clear evidence that the management is being informed and giving feedback from all the reviews that is performed. And then, in order to enable measurement of performance and effectiveness, the clause 9.1 of the standard is going to ask us to monitor, measure, analyze, and evaluate all the management process of information security. In this way, the organization is asked to have all or define the different aspects of the information security that it wants to measure and have a very clear idea of measurement of how well it's performing the information security in the organization. So in this way, the advantage of having or beginning with ISO 27001 in order to establish a GRC program, we can see that we will have established a very well and very clear way to have the governance, established governance, having all the different aspects of the senior management needs and objectives clearly established and covered through the different levels of the organization. We are going to achieve the management through a risk assessment and management process, and be compliant with the needs for information security. So by establishing this, by having an ISMS clearly established in the organization, we can use these practices, all the different activities that the organization is following through its ISMS to project the same or similar process and activities to achieve different other practices that are risk and compliance based. For example, we can use the same practices if we want to achieve business continuity. We can follow the same stages of the ISMS in order to look for business continuity. If we want to go for health and safety, we can also similar practices, just creating and focusing now in the interested elements of health and safety, as well as supply chain or environmental sustainability, quality management, IT governance and assurance, operational risk, project and programming risk, and corporate social responsibility. Some of these different topics process can also be helped through the implementation of other ISO standards. For example, business continuity, we have ISO 27001, and we also have for quality management, of course, the ISO 9000. So there are different other good practices out there that we can follow for more specific details to achieve this goal. But the great thing about maybe beginning with ISO 27001 is all the needed expertise practices that are achieved for information security can be projected and used to implement these other different causes and objectives. So to conclude, the structure of ISO 27001 aligns with GRC practice. It establishes an information security governance aligned with the enterprise governance. It preserves the security of information by applying a risk management process and establishes a set of controls that enables the organization to comply with the requirements to protect its information. So we are achieving the three elements of GRC: governance, risk management, and compliance. Then the process of the ISO 27001 guarantee the establishment, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement of information security management is achieved. Of course, we are focusing here in information security. However, as I already said, this can be used to project to achieve other elements or other objectives that the organization might be interested in be compliant to. And finally, the ISMS makes more natural implementation of other risk and compliance cases. Of course, having this state of mind, the risk and compliance, makes it more easier to achieve this kind of goals. So, thank you for participating. Right now, we can begin answering all your different questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Jorge, for your presentation. We have one question. The question is, let's say I want to use ISO 27001 as a GRC framework. Who is the first person to approach with the idea? Do I go to CISO? If I am a CISO, who do I go to with an idea?
Okay, yes, of course, being an information security oriented standard, of course, we want to first make contact with the CISO The very important thing of information security is that it's not a technical or IT, just IT related topic. It's a business process, it's a business relevant topic. So, of course, we want to begin to approach to senior management. Maybe we can try and go for maybe a CFO, or try even to go directly to the CEO. The importance of this kind of implementation is that we need senior management involved. Of course, to explain and explain the value of implementing an information security, we want to explain that in terms that the senior management can understand. Adding value, be more competitive, maybe reducing costs. And of course, if we explain also this GRC approach that we are going to establish the different practices for the senior management to achieve the organization goals, then it's going to be more easier that they understand the value of all the effort that is going to be needed to implement maybe ISO 27001, and also a very good value to create, again, a structure or an infrastructure that will enable the implementation and adoption of other practices that might be of interest to the organization.
Another question is how to achieve a balance between business expectation and actual resources, I mean technical and human, in order to maintain an acceptable risk level.
Okay, well, of course, we have to establish or have a very clear idea of the objectives that we want to achieve. Of course, information security can be implemented through all the organization, but in order to be cost effective, we want to really discuss what are the objectives that the senior management wants and all the stakeholder wants in order or for the ISMS. So we are going to try and try to discuss with senior management the really important information that we want to protect. So if we can discuss, have clear the information that we want to protect, then we can assign the resources just to protect those or that kind of information, and not trying to cover everything that might not be, well, really of interest of the senior management, and even not be aligned to the real goals that the organization really wants to achieve.
Another question is ISO 27001 enough by itself as a start point for GRC, or ISO 38500 and the ISO 31000 can help in that too, in addition to ISO 27001?
Well, ISO 27001 can, by its own, can achieve the GRC. Of course, if you want to use other standards, for example, 31000 to implement or use the recommendations of that standard for the risk management process, you can also do that. Or even you can also use other good practices for maybe, I don't know, for example, the cybersecurity framework of NIST can also be a good practice if you want to implement controls for information security. But the bottom line, if you use only the the requirements or implement the requirements that are listed in the ISO 27001, then you will be compliant, and of course you will achieve the GRC. You can, again, if you want to use other good practices out there to make more robust your ISMS, you can do that.
Okay, the last question is, if you would have to choose between COBIT and ISO 27001, what would be your choice for GRC?
Well, for GRC, again, it depends on what are the goals that you want to achieve. COBIT is a very good practice, but for be compliant with objectives for the whole IT area. It's going to cover a little bit of information security, but it also covers other different requirements for a good practice in the management of IT. So it will depend. I mean, if you want to begin with COBIT for GRC, you will also be able to achieve that. COBIT is going to create the framework needed to achieve, again, governance, risk, and compliance. But again, it's going to be a more extensive, a more complex implementation, as it covers many different aspects of the IT, a very good IT management process. So it will depend on the resources that you might have. It will depend on the objectives of senior management might have. But again, it's both ISO 27001 or COBIT are good practices if you want to implement and begin to establish your GRC program.
Thank you, Jorge, for sharing this highly informative presentation. We believe the attendees had the chance to learn new things today, and I suggest you to take time and see our future webinars that we will be hosting. Next Wednesday, we will host a webinar topic which is called an overview of risk assessment according to ISO 27001 and ISO 27005. You can also take time and visit our website www.pcb.com on the webinar section to register for our future webinars. Thank you once again and hope to meet you soon in our future webinars.